So as parents, we do our very best to teach our children manners, to teach our children values, but are they actually listening? My next guest says that in order to get your children to listen, you need to first increase connection. Psychologist Dr. Todd Corelli is joining me. Great to see you. This is an interesting topic because we're talking about how to get our kids to listen to us. Do you find this extends to all age groups, or are we zeroing in on a certain stage?
You know, the older the kid, the more important this is. But the principles of getting kids to listen to us apply to all ages and all relationships. So you can use these tips with your spouse, with your kids, with your employer, with anybody.
It's interesting. I was on a strategy call, the family space, and content in the family space is obviously a passion point of mine personally and professionally. And someone was make the argument that the most important years, are the 14 to 18. And while I see what, she was trying to say, really this can start young. Like as we talk about forming connection in order to gain trust and respect and listening, you want to start, I imagine, as early as you can.
If you don't have connection until you're 14, you're not probably going to get it.
You're in trouble. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. And connection is where we want to start. You have 3 ways to get our children to listen and engage better. First is that connection. How can we increase that bond, Todd?
So it's anything. I'll give you a real story. This is a silly story, and it's no big deal. A couple weeks ago, my wife said, Supercross is in town. Now, these are dirt bike racers.
Oh,
right?
yes.
They're the world's best dirt bike racers.
Yeah.
I think you should take Brian. He's my 17-year-old son. And I'm like, Brian probably doesn't want to hang out with me. He'd probably rather hang out with his friends. So she pushed me on it, and so I did it. So I bought the tickets, and I told him a week ahead of time, next Saturday night, you're hanging with Dad. So Saturday comes rolling around. We go out to dinner, and as we're getting closer to Rice-Eccles Stadium, he's getting excited. He didn't, because it was a surprise.
Okay.
The whole night, thank you so much. Oh, Dad, this is so fun. Oh, I can't believe we're here. And I'm not even kidding. He probably thanked me 50 times that night.
And you were surprised, I could tell.
I was surprised at how much that meant to him.
Yeah. I
mean, I know this is his thing, and so when we want to connect with somebody, we got to connect with them in what means most to them. Like if I took him golfing, that wouldn't work.
Right.
It worked for me.
Right.
That meant a lot to him. And coincidentally, it was a night I had no time. By doing that, when I got home at 11:30 at night, I had 2 more hours to finish a task that had to be done that night. But it was so worth it.
Yeah.
And it's a little thing. We can connect in lots of little ways. It's really about spending time.
And meeting them where they are.
Meeting them where they are. And you have to, that's really critical. You kind of have to do what they want to do.
Yeah, which might mean video games. It might mean Supercross.
It could be video games.
Yeah.
It could be reading comic books. It could be anime, which I think is ridiculous. But you know what I mean? It's whatever means the most to them.
Good advice. I think golfing is ridiculous, but we can have that argument another day. I'm kidding.
I think it is now,
My
too.
husband would be so disappointed in me right now. Resist giving advice. This is a hard one for parents and grandparents, I think, too. You want to jump in with the answers or the solutions.
Well, I've said this before. Advice is disconnection. Listening is connection. To build on this last story, the very next day on Sunday, he had something going on in his life. And it was something that was really bothering him, and he couldn't quite figure out why it was bothering him, and he was really disturbed by it. So I said to him, it was Sunday night, I was laying on bed, I brought him in, I said, tell me what's going on. And I kind of knew what it was, and I knew there were some things I wanted to say to him, but I just listened to him. And at one point, I started reflecting back to him, and he said the most amazing thing. He said, that's it, Dad, you get it. And then I could say some things.
Yeah.
Then, so if you're connected, and you got to do lots of those, it can be little things. And if you listen well, your kids will listen to you.
Yeah.
But if you don't do either of those 2 things, they're not going to listen to you.
You've lost them.
Yeah.
We've got about a minute left. I'm super curious about this third point or this third strategy. You want us to be picky. What do you mean by that?
They're not going to listen to everything you want to say. So if you spend all your time nagging or lecturing and there are things that we need to lecture, there are things that we need to talk about, but we have to be really picky and choosy and like, what's the most important thing? Like this thing that he was in was something that I really wanted to have some influence with him. And whether or not he made his bed that morning is a million times less important, right? So if you overdo it, which most of us do, if we overdo it, they'll tune us out.
Don't waste your words.
No, just be careful.
Super valuable. Be picky and when you choose to impart that wisdom or share that advice. Todd, great advice for us today, again, as parents and grandparents. Where can we get more from you, friend?
So my website, drtoddtalks.com, I've got a parenting course on there that talks about all this stuff, and then I have a YouTube channel, Dr. Todd Talks, and I'm on Instagram.
Thank you for sharing your gift and your expertise. We appreciate it.
Thanks.
And I bet you looked good in a motocross cap.
Well, not as good as he.
Okay, good answer, good answer.